Mercedes car. 7-time champion. Look at Hamilton's onto the grass, and Hamilton's at the back. Rosberg is second. Hamilton is out of qualifying.
Lewis Hamilton bucked the trend in a sport almost entirely shaped by money. He rose from nothing to compete with the best of the world, never doubting himself. This has made him a controversial figure and attracted plenty of criticism. But Hamilton's record speaks for itself. He's one of the greatest of all time. In his prime, after joining Mercedes, he was virtually unbeatable, winning 6 out of 7 seasons, breaking the all-time record for pole positions, race wins, and podiums. He crushed rivals, including Fernando Alonso and Sebastian Vettel, to leave himself miles ahead of the rest of the field. He's now the most decorated Formula One driver in history and is still competing to break another record, an 8th World Championship. This is the story of Lewis Hamilton and how he broke into a world guarded by discrimination and money to dominate like never seen before. Unlike most of his future colleagues, Lewis Hamilton came from humble beginnings. Growing up in Birmingham, England, Lewis had a torn childhood, with his parents separating when he was barely 2 years old. Lewis lived with his father, Anthony Hamilton, who would become the driving force in his life. From a young age, Lewis was fascinated by cars. His first experiences were with radio-controlled cars, and it didn't take long for him to excel at it. Within 1 year, he was competing at the National Radio-Controlled Car Championships. Looking around, he saw only adults as competitors. That didn't stop him from placing second and even being featured on television for his efforts. Anthony could see in his son the sparks of greatness. He did everything in his power to push forward an unlikely dream. Working several jobs, he bought Lewis a go-kart and took it to the local club. Anthony's faith immediately paid off. Lewis was a prodigy. He showed class and technique rarely seen in a young driver. But he had to fight off the track too. Since joining his first go-kart club, his race made him a target of racial discrimination. He was isolated and insulted for the color of his skin. He had a similar experience at school too. Like all great champions though, this helped him develop a thick skin. Lewis was winning championships by the age of 8, and in 1995 he earned himself a spot in the history books as the youngest driver to claim the British Cadet Karting Championship. The turning point of his career came at this young age, when an ambitious Lewis approached the head of McLaren, Ron Dennis, at an award ceremony. McLaren was the biggest name in Formula One at the time and at the peak of their powers, winning back-to-back championships in 1998 and 1999, fending off the likes of Michael Schumacher. Little did Ron Dennis know, but his next championship would come from the little boy standing in front of him. Lewis reportedly told Dennis that he wanted to drive for the team, and the F1 boss asked him to call him in 9 years. In fact, it took less than a year, and it was Dennis phoning Lewis, offering him a position in the McLaren driver development program. Just as he had to his father's gamble, Lewis proved to Dennis that he'd made the right decision, winning the European Championship, Formula Renault UK, Formula 3, and GP2. By the end of 2006, he was a decorated driver, the #1 prospect, and ready to make his mark on the biggest stage in motorsport, Formula One. Lewis Hamilton may have been the up-and-coming superstar, getting attention from all of the media, but he couldn't have been pitted against a tougher teammate in Fernando Alonso. Alonso was the 2-time defending world champion and was viewed as McLaren's best chance of breaking their 7-year championship drought. That was until Hamilton arrived. In his debut race, he finished on the podium and continued this form. Behind the scenes, Alonso was furious. His rookie teammate had matched him and in many races outperformed him. Alonso accused the team of favoring Hamilton after the Canadian Grand Prix, and the garage fractured into 2 camps. The most infamous moment came in Hungary, where Alonso blocked Hamilton during a qualifying session and was penalized for it. By the end of the season, Hamilton had incredibly finished the season equal with Alonso on 109 points, just 1 point behind the champion, Kimi Räikkönen. The divided team was enough for Alonso to depart for rival Renault, leaving Hamilton as the #1 driver. The following year, Hamilton showed what he could do with the team's full confidence. However, this season revealed an ugly side of Formula One, where Hamilton was racially targeted, especially by fans at the Spanish Grand Prix, where fans of his rival Fernando Alonso were out in full force. Hamilton was compared to a monkey, and at other times told to go back to where he came from. He was considered a divisive figure to the traditional Formula One fan base. If Hamilton was feeling the pressure, he didn't show it. He dramatically won the championship in the final race, 1 point ahead of Ferrari's Felipe Massa and 45 points ahead of his new teammate Heikki Kovalainen. Unfortunately, this year was also the high point for McLaren, whose engine and car design dropped dramatically over the following years, falling behind Brawn GP and an all-dominating Red Bull. By the end of the 2013 season, Hamilton had had enough. He wanted to win championships and so took the risky move of jumping ship to Mercedes, who were entering Formula One again after an absence of over 50 years.
Won one World Championship title at McLaren.
Many commentators criticized the decision. Hamilton was taking a gamble against the firmly established powerhouse of McLaren. He would be partnering with a teammate from his junior years, Nico Rosberg, and their first year seemed to prove the critics right. Hamilton finished in 4th place while Rosberg finished in 6th. However, the following season ushered in a new turbo hybrid era with one of the biggest regulation changes in F1 history. Mercedes took full advantage and emerged as the gold standard team, granting Hamilton his second world championship. In fact, the Mercedes engine was so powerful that the former executive director of the team later revealed that the team intentionally turned down their power, knowing that the regulations might be changed if their advantage was too clear. Hamilton had proven himself early in his career to be an incredibly resourceful driver, causing minimal wear on his tires while pushing to the very maximum of a car's capabilities. He particularly became known for wet driving, where his adaptability and versatility were on full display. Armed with the overpowered Mercedes, over the next 6 seasons, Hamilton's only obstacle was his teammate Nico Rosberg. In 2016, the Hamilton and Rosberg rivalry came to a head, with the two crashing into one another at the Spanish Grand Prix after both refused to yield. The rest of the season was marred by boiling tensions between the two Silver Arrows. Rosberg eventually won the season for his maiden world championship, but it was so exhausting that he immediately retired from the sport. Hamilton was now given free rein at Mercedes, where he went on to break virtually every record in the sport. He collected a total of 7 world championships, tying with Michael Schumacher for the most of all time, as well as the most race wins, pole positions, and podium finishes. Together with a new teammate, Valtteri Bottas, a relative calm allowed Hamilton to stretch his legs and settle into a comfortable position at the top of the table. Hamilton fought against Sebastian Vettel towards the end of Mercedes' dominance, which ended once and for all in 2021. However, that wasn't without controversy. In what was arguably the most exciting season of Formula One in history, Hamilton went head-to-head with Red Bull's Max Verstappen, taking the fight to the final race in Abu Dhabi. After a series of unprecedented decisions by the race director, Max Verstappen was allowed to overtake Hamilton on the final lap of the season, giving the Dutchman his first world championship. An internal investigation found that the outcome was the result of human error. But it was too late. Hamilton was denied what would have been a historic 8th world championship. And in 2022, with a major regulation change, Mercedes slumped to the middle of the grid for the first time, failing to win a race all season. Few other Formula One drivers have broken out of motorsport into wider celebrity. One example was Michael Schumacher, but Lewis Hamilton has broken the mold entirely, branching out into entertainment, Hollywood, the restaurant business, and even collaborating with Tommy Hilfiger with his own line. Hamilton's place in the sport has been groundbreaking in many ways. Most of his opponents on track either come from ultra-wealthy backgrounds or have deep family connections in the racing world. This comes with the territory as an incredibly expensive sport. It is estimated that driving in Formula 2 can cost around $3 million a season, and many aspiring drivers have families who put up most of this money. Hamilton was one of the few fully sponsored drivers to make it to Formula 1. He has described the sport as being a billionaire boys club. This is part of the reason Hamilton is and remains the only black driver to ever compete in the sport, and his childhood experiences of racism have only increased on a bigger stage. After he beat Max Verstappen at the British Grand Prix in the dramatic 2021 season, he was subject to a torrent of online racist abuse. In 2021, he launched Mission 44 with over $20 million of his own money to help people from diverse backgrounds make it into the sport. He became the face of the Black Lives Matter campaign, demanding racial equality, and he was honored at the Black Excellence Awards for his impact as a role model for aspiring athletes. One current British driver, Lando Norris, has been open about Lewis Hamilton being a source of inspiration for him getting into racing. More than 17 years later, Hamilton continues to compete in the pinnacle of motorsport, amongst a new generation who grew up watching him race. He has recently signed a new contract with Mercedes until 2025, so it looks like Hamilton isn't going anywhere just yet.